Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today, I've got the fabulous Nicole with me, who's also known by the name of the former fat girl. So there's a big clue in the title there, what we might be talking about. Anyway, hi, Nicole. How come you decided to talk and think about nutrition?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure finally chatting with you. So to make a super long story short, because my journey to land me as former fat girl, or as Barcase says, formerly fat, has been over 20 years. So when I was always active growing up. I was born in 80, so back then there were no cell phones, there was no internet. As a Gen Xer, we weren't allowed in the house. So from the time we got home from school until dinner, we would be outside, and then our parents would kick us back out. So very, very, very active sports, um, just playing with the kids, not sitting in front of the TV, et cetera, like, kids do now. So I was very fit, very athletic. Then when I was about 11 years old, my brother passed away. And that's really where things started to kind of go south. Because when you're that young, you don't know how to grieve. You don't know what grieving is. You have no clue how to deal with those emotions. And my parents just lost their child. So, of course, they were dealing with their own emotions. So, unfortunately, I was left kind of to deal with it on my own. And when family and friends would come over, they would check in with the parents. Unfortunately, no one thinks to check in on the siblings or the kids. So I turned to food. I've always had a sweet tooth, if you will. I've always eaten the junk food, the Swedish fish, the ice cream, all those things. But I was able to work off a bad diet because, again, as a Gen Xer, you're not allowed in the house. So I was able to work it off. But over the years, I notice, and hindsight's 2020, I guess I'll get into that here in a minute, but it started to kind of evolve from eating like recreationally to where I was like eating in my room. I would have piles of candy, I guess binge eating tendencies, I guess I would call it now looking back. So fast forward a bit, I joined the Air Force. I spent 14 and a half years in the Air Force. And my very last PT test, which is the mile and a half run, push-ups, sit-ups, and they tape your waist. I failed my very last one. That happened, I think, like 6 months before I got out. So out of my entire career, I passed every single test except for the last one. I passed everything. I busted tape. Because when you are so used to looking at yourself every day, you don't realize, I guess body dysmorphia, I guess is what they call it now, but I never saw myself as big as I truly was. Similarly to now, I don't see myself as small as I am. I still see myself. So it's kind of strange, but I never realized how out of control my bad habits have gotten until I failed that test. 35 inches, 35 and a half inches was a maximum a woman can be. I was about, I think if I remember correctly, I was 38 inches. And when they put me on the scale, I was just shy of 180 pounds at 5 feet short, so 60 inches flat. So I got out on a failed PT test, honorable discharge, all that stuff. But I continued my bad habits because not only did I not have people telling me to run and work out and get up and go to work, I was less active and still eating the same way. So fast forward to right as the thing happened in 2020, I was at my heaviest, about 200 pounds, again, 60 inches flat. Um, it was then that I was furloughed from the federal government because of the thing. So that's really where I decided, I did go to cognitive behavioral therapy for 4 months and really changed my emotions and my mindset and truly grieved finally. But it took a couple years after that really to really make a change, but I was mentally and emotionally ready to make a change. I also did a 4-year vegan stint, by the way. But in 2020, while everyone else was gaining weight, that's where I started my journey. So I was lucky to where my CrossFit coach owner of the gym I went to had a garage gym, and he would let about two of us at a time work out. So I called myself a professional athlete. I would work out 2 hours a day. I slashed my so-called calories. And that's how I lost weight. I ended up losing 50 pounds doing it that way. And I decided to get certified. So I've always had knowledge of nutrition. I've taken exercise science and nutrition courses in college. I've always done research, but I'm formally trained to help me continue my journey because I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And that's where I started my business because, you know, there's no one who was formerly obese working with obese clients. And that's the gap I filled. But all, I would say it wasn't until the beginning of this year, because I was still sleep apnea, high blood pressure, chronic inflammation, anxiety, depression, all those things. I dropped the weight, but all those things were still present. I'd always known about low carb, keto, and all that, of course, from my formal training, but it's emergency backup system and all that stuff. But I really binge watched Bart Kay's videos, Judy Cho. I did my own digging down the rabbit hole, and I decided I'd give it a try. So I gave it a try, I think in March of this year, and I just took it in 30-day chunks. And then here I am, still, I guess I would call myself low carb animal based. But my anxiety, depression has subsided. About 45 days in, I had to give my first public speaking in person public speaking. It was about 45, 50 business owners. And I had no stage fright. My heart didn't skip a beat. I was confident, and I've never experienced that level of confidence in my entire life before. My sleep apnea is gone. I would surmise my husband's sleeping in the same room. I've never gotten another sleep study. I'm not sure about my high blood pressure, but I'm considered kind of overweight, I guess. I still have like one more pant size to lose. I'm still kind of on my weight loss journey. I've lost about 65, 70 pounds so far. So I have a little bit more to go. But I would say my inflammation's gone. I've had all the itises in my right knee for multiple knee surgeries, arthritis, bursitis, tendonitis. I don't know if I still have them. They're dormant. I can take the stairs now. I can function like a normal person. So I would say overall, this has been very transformative. I have reintroduced carbs back in, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's been like very transformative professionally, how I work with clients personally. I'm healthier now I like to say I'm healthier now in my 40s than I ever was in my, teens, 20s and 30s. So that's the shortened version of a very long story.
Yeah, that's amazing though, and thanks for that. There's ever such a lot that you threw in. I don't know where to start. That's that's unusual for me. I'm normally like, oh, that sounds great, but there was so much in there. I think one of the things well, firstly, thank you for being so candid. I mean, it's a horrible story at the beginning, obviously, with your brother and things. So commiserations there. You said you never saw yourself as big. And yet when you painted the picture of, 180 pounds and 5 foot tall, that's possibly hard for people to believe. But as you say, it was so gradual. So I think that's a big thing for you to admit that looking back, you didn't see it. Were there people around you that were sort of nudging you that maybe you need to lose weight and you were just ignoring them? What was the situation there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually never been asked that before. So thanks. That's a very interesting question. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I did continue to gain weight. I did stop weighing myself. But I did continue to gain weight. And I guess at that weight and my height, I was classified as morbidly obese at that height and weight. I remember one year for Christmas, I forget how long ago, but I remember my uncle saying, wow, Nicole, you put on some weight. And I remember running to my room crying. But I've had, family members, my parents were a little gentler, but family members comment on my weight when they would see me. Because again, it was, like you said, gradual. So they would see me one year, and then the following year they would see me, and of course I'd be bigger. So I've had them comment. It wasn't until my wedding day. I got married in 2015, and I saw the wedding photos, and I was looking at the pictures, and again, I continued to gain weight, but I was looking at the pictures. I was like, everyone's like, wow, beautiful bride, beautiful bride. I was like, damn, I'm fat. Like it, but that's not what I saw in the mirror though. Like that picture of my wedding photos, even with people telling me, it wasn't until I saw a picture, because I don't take a lot of pictures of myself, that I was like, holy cow. Um, but I didn't go to therapy at that time until a couple years. I think it was 2017 or 2018. So I wasn't mentally, emotionally ready. And that's what I like to tell people. You can't make people lose weight. Like people can tell me, Nicole, you've gained weight. Nicole, you're fat, you're this, but that really doesn't do anything, honestly. It just makes us feel worse about the situation. You can't make someone make a change. So I had to hit what was my rock bottom to make a change and to be ready emotionally and mentally. So, yeah, I have had people comment. I saw my wedding photos and saw how big I was, but it really didn't do anything for me. I mean, I had to come to that decision on my own. Unfortunately, it took quite a few years after that to come to that decision, but it's it's just the way I guess it works.
Yeah. And I guess possibly because you were out of your normal context, in a wedding dress, you looked a proper look, if you know what I mean, because it was so, wow, look at me. Oh, yeah, look at me. And I think like almost like a double take. And I've had that said to me quite a few times about people I've interviewed. I had sort of the reverse, just to show there is some empathy. I thought I looked amazing when I did keto. Now I look back, I'm carnivore now, not knocking keto at all, just my journey personally. I look back at my pictures when I was on keto and I just look gaunt. I look terrible. Certainly look better than when I was high carb and all that. But out of my low carb keto carnivore journey, definitely when I was keto, I don't think I looked as healthy as I do now. 5 years later at 59, I feel like I look better than I did when I was on keto. So you slipped in also 4-year vegan, by the way. You actually use that expression. So how was that experiment? And why did you start that? And obviously, why did you stop that?
I like how I slid that in and you stopped and you caught that. So, because it's hard for me to keep a mental timeline of like exactly how my journey went, because it was literally lifelong. Like I'm 43 now and it started at 11. So, yeah, so that happened. The documentary, What the Health, 2017. I will never forget this. I was sitting in our downstairs living room. I watched that documentary and I bought into the propaganda at the time. But in my defense, that's also what's promoted as healthy, is primarily a plant-based diet. And I was still struggling with my weight. I did all the yo-yoing and the fad diets and all these things to try to lose weight. It was super unhealthy, but I saw that documentary. It was more so ethical. I just saw how the animals were treated, just like, many people who go vegan. And I still think it's terrible. But I saw that documentary and I remember I was eating pizza. We ordered pizza, again, emotional eating, and I had a problem with food. I went up to my husband after I watched that documentary and said, I'm never eating meat again. And I kid you not, the next day is where I went 100% vegan. There was no transition, no nothing, just 100% vegan. Um, I was still having digestive issues like bloating, which I felt the bloat in my belly, but I thought that was normal because it's normalized going to the bathroom all the time, gas, inflammation, like all these things that you think are normal. Um, and I did continue to gain weight. I just stopped being vegan actually a few years ago. So not that long ago. It was from 2017 to 2021, I think was my last year as vegan. But yeah, I gained more weight as a vegan, and my inflammation in my knee, all the itises in my one knee, it was terrible. I was in pain all the time. So yeah, so that did absolute nothing for me. Oreos are vegan, by the way. Dark chocolate peanut chews are vegan, by the way. So I mean, there's dirty vegan, I guess, and whole food vegan. I kind of towed the line because again, I still didn't address my food issues. So I would still find vegan ways to eat the stuff that I used to eat, because I still had issues. But yeah, it really just made things worse for me, even though that's what was promoted as healthy. But yeah, What the Health got me. I was a What the Health victim.
Well, it was, yes, some documentaries are very compelling. I mean, just going on to the terrible treatment of animals, nobody likes that. I mean, if you're carnivore, I don't want animals badly treated. I take pride in going to the farms and filming every so often in my videos of the cows and the sheep and the pigs and the chickens, and they're treated wonderfully. You can see, and they're happy. It's not about stopping eating animals. It's about stopping animal cruelty. There's animal cruelty. There are people that beat their dogs and, mistreat their cats and stuff. I don't think anybody likes that, really. But anyway, that's a good point, and a good ethical point for some people to change. I do understand. One of the things you also said was that you failed your last fitness test but passed all your other ones. So was that purely because of the metrics, your waist size that you failed, or was it also, function? Was it sort of running and jumping or whatever, those sort of things?
Jumping would have been fun. No, it was strictly I busted tape. So yeah, I was a beast when it came to push-ups and sit-ups. I'm very, very strong upper body. But yeah, I passed everything but the tape. And if you bust tape, they weigh you, and that's how I knew what I weighed. But I made the excuse, right? I made the excuse, oh well, I'm muscular because under the fat I am lean. I lean out really quickly and easily. So I made the excuse, well, muscle weighs more than fat, right? Because that's what we're told. So I stepped on the scale, again, body dysmorphia, and I think it was 170 something pounds. I saw the number, but I made an excuse in my head for that number. So yes, I busted weight and tape, but passed everything else.
Yeah, cool. So what are you eating now then? Or, well, actually, let's start again. So you came off vegan. What did you do next?
So I went off vegan in about 2021. That was in the middle of the thing that happened in 2020. I don't know if we're allowed to say that yet, but so the thing that happened in 2020, I was still vegan. I think after I went vegan is where I kind of went back to my old way of eating, just kind of like a cleaner version. But again, I was almost 200 pounds, about 200 pounds at my heaviest. So it was very slow, the weight gain. So yeah, the beginning of this year, 2023, is when I switched to low carb, kind of a last ditch effort because I was still yo-yo dieting. I've done Ideal Protein, South Beach Diet, The Biggest Loser contests, extreme fasting. I've done pretty much everything under the sun. I did the Ally pill, which is a fat burner pill they had like in the early 2000s that just made you run to the bathroom. I've done all the things. So going low carb the beginning of this year, I don't remember the fad diets I did after vegan, but I did fad diets. The beginning of this year was kind of like my last ditch effort. I'm like, I tried everything else, I thought, and I was like, let me just try this. So that's ultimately why I decided to, I guess, change low carb. I was zero carb for a few months. I didn't have as much healing, I guess. I didn't have a laundry list like some people do. Most of my issues were from being obese, or I guess morbidly obese. So I didn't have as much healing to do, but I've never also attended to be zero carb. But I did go zero for a few months just to get my stuff together. And then I started slowly reintroducing some carbs back in.
So what was the initial feelings? Did you immediately feel better? Was it 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months? When did you start thinking, wow, this is actually going to work?
So unlike most people, I didn't switch for weight loss. Of course, I knew that would be an after effect. I switched because of my inflammation. And when I say inflammation, I'm sure I was inflamed everywhere, but I'm talking specifically my knee because the knee surgery I had was major reconstructive knee surgery. And, the doctors told me I would need a knee replacement when I get older. I was close on needing a partial for this one. I would never be able to, function normally again. I would have to deal with the pain. It's very uncomfortable having all the itis, sitting, standing, kneeling, going up and down stairs. It would just get stiff. The weather would bother it. My knee can predict whether it's going to rain. So it's very, very uncomfortable. So when I first switched, I would say right after I switched, I would say days within the week I switched, I did a strength test. I went to the gym and I did a single leg press with both legs to gauge my strength, isolation, to gauge my strength. My right, which is my bad one, was I think at about 45 pounds with discomfort afterwards. So then after about 60 days, I tested again. I was like, well, let me see where I'm at. So after 60 days, I tested the strength in my right knee leg press. And I think if I remember correctly, I was about 60 pounds, no discomfort and no pain. Now I can obviously do more than that, but yeah, I would say probably 30, 60 days, I started to have decreased inflammation specifically in my knee, and then my cognitive functioning, like the public speaking story I gave, that was about 45 days in, where I had no anxiety, no stage fright, no depression. So I started seeing results about 45 days, but 60 days I think things started to really come together with, the mental health, the inflammation, the digestion, things started to come together more holistically after about 60 days.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. I think you're now going to see why I asked about earlier in your life. Did anyone point out that you weren't looking too good? When you decided to go low carb, did you have lots of friends and family pushing back and telling you you're mad, or did you have support at that point?
Oh, when I said get those vegetables out of here, um, no, they've been supportive. Actually, so I'm originally from New Jersey, here in the United States. So my parents still live in New Jersey. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area now with my husband. So I see my parents maybe once every other month, once every month. So over the course of the year, my parents would visit. And I remember one of the last times they came, my mom was like, "You're starting to melt away. Like you look like you lost a person." That made me feel good because she doesn't see me all the time. So when she sees me, that just tells me I'm still making progress, because I still look in the mirror and I still see me as big. Kind of like similarly when I was big, I still saw myself as small. So it's like this issue I don't know how to get around that, but I still have this weird image of myself. So it's just good positive reinforcement. When it comes to the way I eat, everyone's really supportive. I've had one friend who actually got very upset with me for not eating my vegetables at the time. I'm not opposed to it. Like I said, if they put asparagus on my plate, I will eat it. But at that time in the beginning, I did not eat vegetables. I was zero carb. At that time, I did have friends get very upset with me. People get passionate about their food, and get defensive over what people eat if they don't agree with it. So outside of my YouTube life and working with clients, I really don't talk about food. I just eat. It's just, I don't identify as whatever I eat. If someone asks me a question like, why aren't you eating that? I will happily answer. But other than that one person, everyone else has been supportive because they see how happy it's making me, how my transformation while I'm still on my weight loss journey. Losing 65, 70 pounds so far is no small feat, and it hasn't been linear. I mean, when I transitioned beginning of this year, I did gain some weight back, and that made me very upset. Because I was eating, it was easier than I thought to overeat meat because I wasn't used to eating beef and all that. So I did gain a little, not a lot, but I noticed in my face, I gained a little bit of weight back. So I was stalled for a bit, and I feel like I'm finally starting to lose again. But yeah, everyone's been supportive. My husband has cut his carbs. He's not doing what I'm doing, but he's been listening to me. He's been watching me. So he'll do things like eat half the bun. He won't eat all of the fries anymore. He won't eat all the potatoes. So he's made little cuts like that. And he said he's noticed a difference. My mom has gone Atkins again. My dad has not, unfortunately. He's type 2 diabetic because he's very obese. But yeah, I mean, I've had people wanna give it a go with me, and I've had family members and friends do small cuts like eating half the bun and things like that without me prompting, just by watching me. So that's been really, really pleasant to see.
Yeah, that's great. It's fabulous to be able to influence people without um, pressuring them, just letting them see you and think, oh, that looks like that's working, I'll give that a go. That's a really nice story. Sorry to hear that about your dad. I think that's one of the biggest problems in society with type 2 diabetes, and many I mean, that's my specialism. I'm a specialist practitioner in obesity
Oh.
and diabetes. And many people come to me with the diabetic stuff, and they have been literally, no pun intended, saturated with bad information. Absolutely. And they just, you know, my stepfather had amputation due to diabetic complications. So I'm not treating it lightly, but I think it's difficult with the older generation because they trust the news outlets, they trust people in white coats with stethoscopes, and they don't trust people online that are coaching, even if they've got, you know, degrees and lots of qualifications. But anyway, let's hope he can get a bit better. You never know. Right. So you said you started to add carbs back in. We'll get to that later. So this is later. Let's get to it. Why did you start adding carbs back in?
Nice segue. Yeah, I never intended to go like to stay zero. I think it's a great elimination. I think it's a great start. And I'm open to being controversial. So carnivore is similar to vegan in that respect. It's what they both have in common is they're both the ultimate elimination diet, and they're both eliminating added sugars, the ultra processed foods and all that stuff. So I wanted to I was coming at it from emotional eating and borderline, I would say not a full out addiction, but I obviously had a problem with food, or I wouldn't have been morbidly obese and as heavy as I was. You're not going to have some sort of addiction with being that overweight. So I wanted to kind of just heal, one, my relationship with food, and two, just kind of get a handle on food freedom, I like to call. So being able to eat things without the guilt or shame and all that. So I kind of wanted to start over, kind of like a reset. So I did go zero carb for probably about the first few months, probably 4 months. I just wasn't counting. But I miss the freshness. I do like berries. I miss the variety. For me, for something to be sustainable, I need variety. I did miss the freshness. So I added in, I mostly eat berries, blueberries, raspberries. Sometimes I'll have strawberries, avocado. I have cashews every once in a while. I can't have a lot of peanuts and things like that because that does upset my stomach, I've noticed. I found this is going to be controversial, that's okay. I found glyphosate free oatmeal. So I gave that a shot. So regular oats are like 20, almost 30 grams of carbs. These are 14 grams, so it's pretty much half the carb. Things like Quaker Oats and the brands that have glyphosate really did, because I tried, it upset my stomach. So I did research and found this brand. I forget what it's called. I think it's Simply Organic is the brand. And that does not upset my stomach. So I use that. I'll do a half a sweet potato. I'll do a half a banana. So I'm under 50. I try to stay below 50. But I also cycle. So I kind of use carbs. I cycle carbs around my cycle. So I go from maybe 20, maybe 15 at my lowest, and then I'll go up to 50. So like I said, I try not to go over 50, but those are the carbs I've kind of toyed with and that so far work for me. I choose not to eat the whole sweet potato and the whole banana just because I choose not to have all that sugar and all those carbs. So I kind of do the happy medium, just have half. But I can have things like ice cream now. I don't, but my husband has like Snickers bars, ice creams, and Klondike bars, ice creams in the freezer all the time. The old Nicole would know that it's there and would have a hard time not eating those things, would have a hard time just eating one. So the fact that I know it's there and I choose not to eat them, I'm not tempted. I get ice cubes, see them, I don't care. If I do choose to have one, I move on with my life. I haven't had one in months and months, but if I choose to have one, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel shamed. I don't binge eat. I don't have cravings. I just eat it and move on with my life like nothing happened. And that is what I mean by food freedom. And that's what this way of eating has helped me achieve, as well as therapy and all these things, because the old me would binge, binge eating tendencies. I didn't have an off switch. So the fact I'm able to eat what I'm eating now with an off switch and eating something like a half a banana doesn't trigger cravings or any of those things, that is what I'm most proud of out of this whole journey, out of everything. I've mentioned my, my results. Like, that is what I'm most proud of, because that's the 20 plus year journey that it took me to get here. And I enjoy my food now. It's balanced, it's animal based, it's, animal foods first. And then if I choose to have, an avocado or some berries or Greek yogurt, then that's what I'll do. But I just make sure I get my protein and fats in first. And then if I choose to have something else, and that's kind of like an afterthought type thing, is how I approach it.
Yeah. The big word there, the operative word, is choosing. And the food freedom is something that people don't understand until they've made that journey. And it is almost, for most people, like a switch. You suddenly get how your body works and you understand. I know you're sort of into the emotional eating, and that's what your specialist subject is. We will get to that in a second, but I just wanted to say, I think it's great that you can have those sort of foods in the house. I mean, that is the definition of food freedom. You know they're there, but you choose not to, and you don't get hung up. And I'm over egging this bit because I think that people need to know that they shouldn't get guilty, even if they're, say, very strict carnivore and they so-called lapse, and they have lasagna or something that used to be their favorite. Just eat it and move on. Make your next meal carnivore. Don't feel guilty, because that's the worst thing you can do. And I think also I'm going to ask you a couple of sort of practical admin type questions. Under eating, I think, is a big problem. I think people come from this weight loss journey, fat loss journey is probably a better term, and they're constantly thinking about how much they're eating, not the quality. And I think this is the big difference. When you start eating animal-based, you start looking at the quality of the steak and all this sort of stuff. So, easy question for you. What does a day of eating look like for you? Are you 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, or are you just intuitive?
Oh man, I've been all over the map. I was OMAD for about a solid month. But I've mostly been 2MAD. But I've noticed with my weight stall that I think with the 2MAD, that doesn't work for me, because I was obviously overeating, or I would have been losing weight. So it was easier than I thought to overeat, for me. So recently, I mean within probably the last couple weeks, I'm back to 3 meals, because for me that's more manageable, and I am still trying to lose the last little bit of weight. But yeah, I'm back to 3 meals. I'm having sausage and eggs for dinner. I had a bacon cheeseburger patty with half an avocado. Sometimes for breakfast, I'll have bacon cheeseburger patties all day, every day. That's pretty much a staple, because I have this like chuck and brisket blend burger patties that are absolutely phenomenal. So that's mostly what my diet looks like, just beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And like I said, I will have the berries or the Greek yogurt for dessert. I recently started having Greek yogurt for dessert. So I'll have like Greek yogurt with some blueberries. Sometimes I'll put a half a banana in there. But other than that, I'm primarily beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And I went OMAD, 2MAD, and now I'm back to 3 meals a day, because I find that it's easier for me to keep control on my portions and my intake, so I can keep losing weight more. It's more manageable for me. Eating 3 times a day is more manageable.
That's fascinating, and I think this is one of the things people don't get. It is about what suits you, because there's a lot of influencers out there that just say OMAD's the way to go. That's it. Very broad statement, and for some people it is. And I loved OMAD when I did it. I found it very beneficial. But then my life changed, and my situation changed. The temperature changes in the world. It gets darker at night, and 2MAD suits me better. It's just better socially. That's the other thing. Still got to be social animals. We still got to operate with other people. And I think I love your philosophy. So I'm going to the final couple of questions. One is, I noticed on your Instagram, you're an emotional eating psychology specialist. What's happened there? Did you get qualified? How did you get interested in that?
Yeah, so I am certified and educated in that specifically. And it's because I feel like people are putting a band-aid on the problem of obesity. And I'm of the belief that if you are obese, morbidly obese, and I'm talking 50, 60, 100 plus pounds overweight, which are the vast majority of my clients, you're not going to get that unhealthy and that overweight without some sort of underlying issue. Most of the time, it's unresolved trauma for the most part. There could be other things going on, but it's all emotional. And that's what I struggled with. And I started working with clients, doing, reversing diabetes and just helping people lose weight, just the generic stuff. But I kind of wanted to become more of a specialist and get to the root cause because I found my root cause and how I feel now. I don't want to be part of the problem of putting a band-aid on it and then having them regain the weight. So that's why I decided to become more educated in that area. I lump emotional eating, I lump a lot of things in the emotional eating bucket. Boredom eating, stress eating, binge eating, under eating, because in my opinion, your body reacts the same way. If you're happy, sad, depressed, you physiologically, you get the same, you produce the same results, the same response. And I feel like it's not talked about a lot, even on YouTube, other than Pim and, a few other people, maybe. No one's talking about food freedom. No one's talking about emotional eating. We're just talking about just the weight loss component. But there's so much more to it. And I'm very passionate about it because I see it a lot when I do lives on YouTube, my comment section, people ask me about emotional eating. People are struggling with their diet. But people are only talking about food. They're not talking about anything else. And a lot of people who come to this way of eating, again, the ultimate elimination diet, you don't have to stay zero, but a lot of people who come to this way of eating have a lot of weight to lose. And if you have a lot of weight to lose, you have a problem with food. You have a problem with food you need to address, and you can't address that problem with food by just focusing on the food. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it took me like 30 years to come to this conclusion. And I don't, and how I feel now, and like you said, the power of food freedom and how no one's talking about it. That's why I'm talking about it more. I want people to feel the way I feel. Like, it's so empowering because food controlled me for most of my life. Now I'm in control of food. And that's the ultimate power that is untapped, that not very many people are talking about.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Nicole, it's been a pleasure. Your links will be in the description if anyone wants to contact you. What do you prefer? Is it via Instagram? What's the best way to get you?
Probably email to my YouTube channel. But I'm trying to be more active on Instagram. I'm a newbie to IG, but yeah, either way works.